Hey there friends, I'm Leo, and today we're going to go over some pretty good advancements when it comes down to the world building of Project Clockwork. On this video, we're going to go over a new housing system I made for creating lots of variations of houses, water, day and night cycle, what I plan to do with optimization for the open world, doors in the interiors, and what those strange cylinders in the distance mean, and a whole lot more. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with the biggest part on this update, which is the housing system that I made to create all of those house variations I might need. This is going to be a system only for me to use when creating houses, and it's not a house building system that the player will be able to use. So a lot of people were asking for player building, but I still don't know if I will add it because I want to have a more Skyrim approach to it. Well, kind of a mix between Skyrim, Fable, and games like that. For example, I will take the time I would spend making the house system and all of the variations that you would need as a player to create more houses that you can buy and get from quests. Apart from that, I also want to make some upgrades to your main house like in Stardew Valley. You will still be able to place furniture, so the customization aspect will still be there for sure. Okay, so here we are with the wall system, and the thing about this system is that I want to be able to edit every single thing about this individual wall so that I can place it in any way that I want and keep all of the customization. So over here you have the type of wall that this is gonna be, so you can have normal, door, you can have a window type, but for now I'm gonna just choose normal. And back here you have the interior wall, and this is the exterior. So I can change the exterior material as much as I need to, and if I want to add more materials, it is really not hard at all. So the framework is already here, and I can also expand on the system. I have these things that I call decorators. So for the exterior wall, I have a decorator for the down part over here, and this would be, for example, a decorator. And then I can change the material of the decorators. This one is the only decorator that has only one variety, because for all of the other decorators I made at least 3 color variations, and I'm gonna show that in a bit. So I have the corners for each decorators if I want to make a 90-degree turn. I also have decorators for all of the parts of this wall over here, so I can make decorators on all sides. Now, apart from the exterior wall, I have this both interiors where I can check, and both of the walls are going to be interiors. I'm still working on this, so it's not complete yet. Then I have this roof kind of tab over here that I can say if this wall is going to be a roof wall. So if I do this, now I know that this wall is looking kind of flat, but I have some things that are going to help with that. For example, I have these roof extensions like this one, for example, and then I can change the colors and you can change the look of it. But this part over here is going to have the same material as your roof. So if you come over here to roof and then you change the exterior material like this, it is going to automatically extend from that one material that you had. Now, coming back to the extensions, I can come back into different kind of layouts and have one that is a little bit longer. And over here you have this little area mesh that I made. So this is all for extensions so far. But then if you want, you can add a roof decorator. And the roof decorator is basically a decorator that is going to be on one roof tile. So if I come over here and I say that I want the roof to have 2 of these blocks, I can have more. So for example, I can have like 3. Let me just move this a little bit sideways. Okay, so I have 3 over here. Now if I want to, I can make a decorator on the roof. So I can add one, and here it is. It also uses the same material from the roof over here. So I can choose the different materials that this particular decorator is going to have. So I can change which decorator this is. I have this one that takes a little bit out of the flatness, but takes a little bit more processing. So I have this one I think I have like 6 or 7 varieties. Like this one's kind of cool. This one. And also all of these decorators have 3 different color variations. So there is some of them have even more. So I can have a lot of customization with the system. Another thing is that you can choose where you're going to place this particular decorator. So for example, I can choose to place this on this spot, on the number 1 spot, for example. This is number 0, number 1, and number 2. Now if I want to, I can place another decorator on number 0, and I can choose which decorator this is going to be. But then if I want to, I can also change this to be number 2. I could change this to be number 1, but it looks weird, so I can change this to number 2, and that is what I get. Now I can use this to, you know, naturally make different kind of walls of roofs. So if you look on the inside, you already have as well this kind of naturally kind of bleeding into the interior as well. So this house, for example, I did this where when you enter this room, you can see a bunch of these decorators over here. Now if I wanted to, I could just block this off. Now I'm still going to expand on this wall system. For example, I want to have a lot of decorators for the insides as well, to have some parts where the wallpaper is kind of peeling off. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, that's the wall system. Now let's go over the window system. What I'm going to do here is that I'm going to change this type of wall to a window. Changing this to a window, I can come over here to my customizable mesh actors, into window, and I just drag and drop over here. Now you can see that this window is not aligned, so what I can do is I can click snap to wall, and it automatically calculates where the wall is and snaps to it like this. So over here on the window, the idea is that you will be able to edit all of the properties of that window. So you can change the frame type, which right now I only have 1, but you can change the material of the frame, and then you can change the door. Which type of door is this going to be? A single, a double, or a vertical type of wall? The only one that I have so far is the single. Now you can change the single door type like this. You can change the single door material. And then the best part about windows is that you can change the decorators of it. So I have this decorator, again, 3 variations of colors like this. But then you have all of these other decorators just for the bottom part, using these plants, for example. Then I have this other one, and so on and so forth. You know, there are a lot of decorators. Now some of them can kind of collide with the other ones, so I have to keep an eye out for that. Now we also have the right decorator and the left decorator. So this is the basic version of it. I can change to a 3 brick kind of deal, or I can do this and change it to kind of 1 flower kind of vase, right? But then I can choose to have 2, all with the different color variations. Or I can just have this pipe that is kind of connecting into the house and then going back to it. Makes it a lot easier. Now another type of upper decorator that we have is this one, that is kind of a more kind of steampunkish one, I think, and goes very well with this one. But then you also have this one that looks a little bit more of something that you would see on a blacksmith's house, I guess. And again, all of them with a bunch of different colors. So as you can see, I had to spend a really long time making all of these meshes work, and it's still lacking a lot to make a fully functioning house, in my opinion. I hope I can get the rest of the foundation pieces done by the next devlog. For example, on the streets, I still want to add porches at the front of the houses, generators on alleys, and lamps on house walls, something like this. With this housing system, I can do a lot on the house foundations, but I will also make what I'm calling the helper meshes. Stuff that I can individually place just to put a finishing touch on walls and things like that. Here you can see that each individual helper mesh is going to have multiple variations of, let's say, a brick, and multiple variations of color as well. Another thing that I made was an actor that makes spline meshes for things like streets and fences. This way I can make any form of street that I want without having to do it all over again on Blender. It's a form of modularity, but a bit more dynamic. And speaking of spline meshes, I also bought a really awesome plugin that generates vines and spline meshes randomly on a surface. So whenever I need to have a little nature's touch, I can easily add it. I'm using that to make the cables on the electric posts as well. One problem that these spline meshes can have is that they make the game a lot less performant because of these things called draw calls. I will explain what draw calls are in the end of the video, so hang tight. So with the houses came the idea of making doors and animations for when you enter and leave them. The original idea was just that you would walk in and the door would open like in GTA 4, but using these animations I can not only transition your camera more naturally, but I also can make a lot of optimizations for the furniture inside of the house. For example, I can keep track of which NPCs are inside of what houses and make everything inside of that house invisible, so it's not taking up on your PC's performance. Another thing that I made is these birch trees using that plugin I talked about on last devlog, and I will be making a lot more as well. And speaking of plugins, I got a few that really helped me out. So last month there was this water plugin that is really good, and I plan on doing a lot of stuff on it, like boats and water gadgets that you can make use of. Also, I gotta make the swim mechanic, because as of right now the character just walks underwater and looks silly. Then there's this plugin for a day and night cycle, and it has this amazing like cloud system, and it is just a really wonderful plugin all around. NPCs are going to use this day and night cycle as a base. I plan on having this special actor to keep track of the time, and every hour it will fire an event. Then the NPCs will subscribe to this event using event dispatchers. This will help so I can take the code out of the NPCs in terms of like calculating which time it is. And here's an example of how I'm reutilizing these plugins to kind of make my own version of them. These plants in this window were bought as an asset on the marketplace, but in order to put them inside of these vases, I brought them over to Blender, then changed whatever I needed to. I did a couple of other fixes, like making the player not do that animation that he stops running for every time he starts running in general. Now it only activates after a few seconds of running time. I showed you guys the street with the houses, but this is just a small piece of land I made to demonstrate how I feel the world should be at the final stages, I guess. So now I started also making the actual game world, and I even got into anxiety attacks thinking about the scale of the world, which I will show it to you now. Yeah, so here's the game world. The city is supposed to be in the middle and also smaller probably. I want to have a more meaningful content instead of a bigger map that has less stuff on it. This thing is that cylinder that I had ever since that first devlog. This is a very rough sketch of what I plan to do, and I wanted it there so I can have a better idea of how it's going to look like and how it's going to feel. So the idea is that this thing is a big mechanical dragon flying around in the sky, and you live on its back. I wanted to capture the feeling of seeing Jormungandr in God of War, but with something that is always there looming in the distance. And the reason I kept this as a surprise for a while is because I didn't know if I was going to pull it off performance-wise, but now I'm studying a lot on how to make the game run better, and I think it's going to work, so I'm comfortable sharing. Now, speaking of performance, I'm going to clarify a couple of things that I learned and what approach I'm going to have to make the game as performant as I possibly can. This part of the video might be a bit boring, but I think it is still important for me to share how I'm thinking on optimizing the game so you guys can give me some tips or ideas. You know how every open world game has that thing where they say, you see that mountain in the distance? You can go there. Well, it turns out the mountain is not fully there when you are really far away from it. It's just a simplified version of it. Most open world games use this tile system to load and unload connected environments together, making it so that you can have simpler versions of terrain when you are really far away from them. One example of this is that on the latest build of Project Clockwork, I had a really big terrain, a really big landscape, and that was not performant at all, and honestly was one of the reasons that that build was so non-performant. So the right thing to do would be to have multiple terrains connected to each other, and then they kind of transition between their level of details in terms of if you're really far away from something, it should have a more simplified version of it there so that you're not rendering everything. In Unreal there is a feature that is called world composition that does exactly that. The way I'm planning on making this all work and not melt any computers is using LODs, loads and loads of LODs. LODs are basically levels of detail that a 3D model has. So when you are really close to a 3D model, it will have the most amount of polygons. But when you are far away, the model will be a lot simpler because you don't really need all of that detail to kind of make sense of what you're seeing. But I didn't do any optimization work on this scene in particular. My objective was just to show it working and the proof of concept of what the world can be. So I won't be letting anyone download this build of the game except patrons. Another thing that I'm fighting to keep in check is draw calls, which are basically the amount of times Unreal has to pass to display things on the screen. The more draw calls, the worse your performance is going to be. Now, the bad thing about this modular house is that it generates too many draw calls. That's why I'm going to merge everything together into one house and apply the level of detail stuff. On the next build, if I don't have the buildings performant yet, I will make a separate level with just the new mechanics so you guys can test it out, don't worry. Now you're probably wondering, where are the pets on the build? Since it's something that I promised on Discord, well, I kinda had to postpone pets to the next devlog because this housing system took too long to make, and I was long overdue to make another devlog, which is one of the reasons as to why these houses are not performant yet. My idea was to have everything working already. Also, college started asking for loads of assignments, and I had to spend some time with that as well. After December, I'm going to finish college, so I'm going to have a lot more time to invest into Clockwork. But yeah, that is it for this devlog. I hope you guys enjoyed the new stuff and you like the idea of what I have for the future of the game. If you want to support me in working on this game full-time, check out my Patreon. And if you want to keep track of what I'm doing, check out the game's Trello board and the itch.io page. Join the community over on Discord if you want to talk to me about the game or just be closer to the community. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for more content. Special thanks to my patron, Django, for being a patron for about 3 months now. Thank you so much, dude, you're awesome. You guys have a wonderful week. I'm Leo, signing off.